I have these friends, Dan and Sheila. They're podcast hosts.
Welcome to Profiling Criminal Minds. I'm Dan.
And I'm Dr. Redmond.
And we are back for episode 5, and just episode 5.
Yep.
The just let's explain the whole plot episode of the show.
Well, what I called it, I thought not explain the whole plot, because we're still not going to, like we'll be talking about it, right?
Yeah, we will.
But it is what I would call the transition plot. It's the episode 5 halfway through, and we're getting we've had some twists. We've got a major shock.
Oh yeah.
Thing going. It's focused on our two main characters, and it's good.
It's good.
Yeah. There's no
my
question.
God.
It was a really great episode.
This is a fantastic... Well, there's a reason. So what we did was, and we said this last week, that we're going to watch episode 5 and see if we're going to devote just the whole episode just to episode 5. And given the stuff they get into, like, the amount of character stuff they do while still going through a whole killer of the week, that they managed to track the themes into.
Yep.
Right? Oh, that's good. That's really good. Oh my God, is that, like, the fact that they managed to tie the killer of the week, which on first blush can't possibly have anything to do with what they're talking about.
Exactly.
And then it absolutely does when you get to the end. Like, the last two scenes pair up so perfectly. Oh my God. Yeah, I was very impressed by this week's episode.
Yes, well, the two Morgan brothers wrote it together.
Yep. Yeah, and it's solid. Oh my God, is this thing solid. All right, so let's get into it. All right.
I wanted to watch the rest of it.
No, I get it. I'm not going to argue with you. It makes perfect sense.
I don't want to wait anymore.
I know, but
and
we
it hasn't
are.
been up until this episode.
I know.
Okay.
This is where it hooks you. And they've done a really great job of hooking us. But like I said, up until now, it has just been the bleakest thing in the world to watch.
It's not like it was any less bleak today.
No, but the thing is, by pulling back the veil on what's going on with all these characters, and allowing us inside their heads, you know, now we're watching them react to these bleak circumstances on more of an even playing field.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh, no, I agree with you.
Okay, good.
There's no question.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's impressive. And that's what I'm saying. It's just a very impressive episode of television, which begins with her new place.
Yes, we have our main,
Chloe Sevigny. We always do.
Yeah, okay. With Chloe and her mother.
Yep,
Kathy
checking
Baker.
out her new place.
At her place, and her mother is just appalled.
Yeah, that she would choose to live like this, because it turns out that the other place is her and her husband's essentially condo in the city. They have a condo in the city for when they used to use it for, you know, when they had stuff to do in the city. Yes. And since he became a judge, you know, they mostly live in the suburbs, and Chloe Sevigny has been living out in the city, living in the city condo. Yes. And she can't do it anymore for a couple of reasons.
Well, duh.
I mean, she tried to make the place her own with her, you know, random sex and everything but fundamentally, she's just not comfortable there anymore. And also because she's now officially digging into her father. Her stepfather's stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But yeah, we'll get into her stepfather stuff. But yeah, so she's definitely going to move. Of course, she can't say that to Kathy Baker.
No.
She can't say why it's so important, but she's like, I've just got to leave. You know, I've got to leave. I've got to be my own person, have my own place. And the only thing she's brought is the picture of her brother. Like, that's the only thing she's brought with her from the other place is the photograph of her brother that she keeps on the shelf. So right away, you know what's going on.
Yeah. She's just decided she has to. And I mean, it is in an unfinished lot. I mean, It's an old place. So
it's converted. It's a converted factory space.
Yes, it's not even converted yet.
Well, no, there's no machines left. There's no machines, and they've put up walls dividing the factory floor. But
but there's about 5 sinks, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. It has not been well converted.
No, so I don't know whether she bought it or whether she's renting it or whatever.
Yeah.
But either way, she's, and of course, Kathy Baker is bound and determined to buy her stuff for it. And she's going, no, I don't want anything. It's okay. I'll be fine. This is where the bedroom's going to be. And this is where the bed's going to be. This is where the kitchen's going to be. And everything. So, but it is, so she and her mother are talking.
Going over it, and
has this look sees the picture of Chloe and her brother.
Yep.
On the post, and that's everything. And I don't know. I mean, it was a good way to start.
It's a really good way to open it, because she is pointedly trying to start something new with her life, and her mother doesn't want to let her.
Yes.
Her mother doesn't want to let her get away, in a sense. And because she's already had... Yeah, exactly. Well, she's already lost one child.
Yes.
And so she can't risk losing another child. But, well, we'll get into that when we get into that.
Yes.
Then we get the murder of the week, which is an execution on a parking garage roof. And you can tell that it's an execution. I think maybe it's the staging, maybe it's the way they shot it, but it's kind of weird that the cops don't see this as an execution because of how clearly, the guys are talking to one another before the shooting happens. And then he stands over a guy and shoots him in the head once he's shot him once to knock him down. This is not because their first instinct, because they're cops and they, like to have...
It's a random mugging.
Yeah, it's a mugging gone wrong. And the guy just didn't know there was a camera.
Yeah.
There's no way to read that body language. And it's a good job by the actors.
Yes.
Because you can't read the body language as that. You have to read it as an execution. But I guess the cops want stuff that's easy to wrap their heads around. Oh, fun fact. The actor playing the new cop, the Italian cop, is the guy who played, the old boss who dies of cancer in the first couple of episodes of The Sopranos.
Yeah.
I think Jackie Aprile. And fun fact about him is, if James Gandolfini hadn't, agreed to do a TV show, he would have been Tony Soprano.
Huh.
And that was his consolation prize, was being the Jackie Aprile character. So there you go. Just a fun little fact about that actor. And obviously Chloe Sevigny wants James Darcy to weigh in on this.
Yes.
Right? But they push back quite heavily. I mean, and she finally finds out why. Right? The Italian cop is just like, I don't trust him. And her partner and her sometimes partner is also very reticent. But the boss finally decides to tell her what exactly went on with James Darcy that, soiled him so completely soiled his opinion so completely at the department.
Yeah.
And whew! It was something. It sure was something.
Yeah. So, are you going to tell us?
Oh yeah, no, I'll get into it. I'll get into it. I don't mind. I just watched it. There was a case with a serial killer who was murdering people and carving Roman numerals onto their hands, and they dug out who they thought was the suspect, and they really thought they had a good sense of who the suspect was, and so they arrested him, and the guy hanged himself in jail.
Yep.
Whew. And then, a month later, another body showed up. They had 6 Roman numerals, 1 through 6, and a body showed up with Roman numeral 7 killed in the exact same way.
Yep.
Oh, and James Darcy couldn't handle it. And they found him in a field where they found the latest body, trying to figure out who the killer is, and he had carved an 8 into his own hand.
Yeah. he had, that meant, okay, off to the psych ward.
Yeah, and so that's why he hasn't been working with the police for a while.
Yeah.
He's been in the psych ward.
Yeah, he was, and he went, as they would say, he just went nuts. I mean, and we saw that in the first episode.
Oh, yeah.
When he left Chloe in the box,
Mm-hmm.
To lie over and see what the killer had
was
seen.
Thinking.
Right?
Yeah,
Was
he
thinking.
wanted to know exactly what was in the killer's head.
Yes, but he went way too far.
Yep.
In the previous, and
Mm-hmm.
yes, that was so dumb.
Oh my God.
When you hear that, right?
That was a shocker. That one I wasn't ready for.
Well, no, I think there's not much in this episode that you're ready for.
Right?
When it gets revealed.
When it gets going, yeah. Oh my God.
So there he is, but the guys, so the two male cops don't want to have anything to do with Darcy. They figure they can handle this on their own, but of course Chloe thinks that, well, I'm just going to kind of run it by him.
Yeah, and so she brings over, she drops off the tape, right?
Yeah.
She drops off the tape and
the CCTV tapes.
The CCTV, right. Thank you. So she drops off the CCTV tapes. And then the cops are like, someone showed up at the crime scene.
Yeah.
We think we might have the guy returning to the scene of the crime. And they look at, because the next night somebody showed up at the crime scene and wandered around and did a little performance of reenacting the crime. And they catch his face in the thing and it's James Darcy. Oh, that was funny.
Dear. Well,
so,
they didn't get too mad at Chloe.
No, they didn't get too mad. Yeah.
Then.
He does come in to talk to them.
Yeah.
And he explains his theory of the crime, which is this, like, it's in public for a reason. Because the guy looks exactly at the camera. And it's not like he's surprised. He knew the camera was there. He wanted to show this person being publicly executed. Ergo, this must be somebody that has a real problem with this guy, so look into anybody this guy might have had business dealings with, anybody this guy might have screwed over in a deal, something like that. This has to be revenge.
But he's basically taunting the cops as well.
With
so
the
he's
fact
got
that
a
they can't
problem
catch
with
him.
Cops,
yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, because they've got to look at, because McAvey, who is the man that was killed, why I remember his name, I don't know.
Of all things.
Yeah. But McAvey was involved in all sorts of dirty dealings.
Yeah, exactly. He's an investor and a businessman, and he's a scumbag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he screws over all sorts of people. So Darcy says maybe you should look for that.
Mm-hmm.
And the two cops initially are unified in dismissing what Darcy says, but
when they don't have any other leads,
the younger one, so Chloe's partner,
sometime partner, is like, what the hell, let's try it.
He's gonna go and look, and he pulls up, and the other cop actually does not want to look at them. Yeah,
that is the interesting part. Like, he is so, and I mean, we have to assume that he was on the case where the guy, the serial killer case, like, from the way he interacts with Darcy. Yeah. Like, he blames Darcy for this guy getting killed and that serial killer still being out there. Mm-hmm. But there's one thing we forgot to mention, which is that when Darcy comes home before he gets the CCTV tape, and this one's on me for forgetting to mention this, because I'm doing the synopsis here, there's a postcard.
Yes.
From St. Louis.
Yes.
And the postcard just says, "I sleep just fine." And we are not told what this means.
No.
Now, maybe because this comes right around the same time as we're finding out about the Roman numeral killer. Maybe the Roman numeral killer is taunting him and moved to St. Louis. The point is, we don't know what this means yet. We are given no information other than we see this postcard. Like, we see the postcard, but that's it. That is all we see, and that is all we're told. So yeah, that was I'm like, I kept waiting for that to get brought up at some point, and it never does. It never comes up again. They are just setting it up for later in the show. And you want to talk about a show trusting its audience, needing to trust its audience. They're like trusting us to remember that next week or the week after, whenever it comes up. Like, that's
well, it is. I mean,
asking quite a bit from your audience, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, it's something to think about. Like he kind of, because it does disconcert him. So
he's clearly unhappy to be finding this in the mail.
Yes, so he knows full well who it refers to.
Yeah, or like who sent it. Exactly. Yeah, like he knows, or he has some suspicion who has sent it to him. So this is kind of a huge deal. We just don't know what it means yet.
Yes,
it's a little frustrating. So yeah, really, really good scene. All right. And so now the cops, as you say, they bring this information, and the one cop doesn't even want to look at it because it's based on the profile, and he has sworn to himself that he will ignore James Darcy's profiles for the rest of his life.
Yes. And however, the sometime partner.
It's like, what else? What do we have to lose, basically? And to be fair, the guy does perk up a little when he hears, right?
Yes.
That one of the suspects is literally like a guy who bartends at a bar they all go to, like at a cop bar.
Yes.
Like that's just down the street. And it's like, what could his problem with cops be? And they find out, and this is the background, he invested all of this money in a restaurant that guy was working on. The guy never opened the restaurant, ran off with all the money. The bartender reported him for fraud, but the cops investigated but never charged him with anything, and the dude lost all of his life savings.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, well, that was it's only because, the sometime partner insisted he look at them, and he finally did, and that was the last one.
And it is it's a compelling motive, and it's somebody they know.
Yeah, it's somebody that they see all the time. And so he's kind of dismissing it, but no.
It does sound good enough to make him be willing to go check it out.
Well, yes, sort of.
Yeah.
I think it takes a while because we don't see them checking him out until later.
Oh, yeah. But the important part is, and this is the key, because we can wrap up this part of the story. James Darcy had talked about the psychology of serial killers in the scene with them and how they keep trophies.
Yes.
Right? And how and the reason they keep trophies is they always want to get that vicarious thrill from looking at it and being reminded about the thing they did, which is why it's not unusual for them to just display their trophies publicly if they're innocuous. Right, if they are innocuous in some way.
Yeah.
Like the famous trope of a man giving his wife the jewelry of the women he's killed.
Yeah.
Right? A not unusual thing that actual serial killers have done, and as a consequence, it shows up a lot in fiction.
Yes.
Right. And and the important part is when they get to the bar.
Yeah, so they go to the bar and they talk to him. And
the guy's like, oh, I'm happy he's dead. And he's like, not acting like a guilty man.
Nope.
And
so they're about to walk out.
When they notice, sitting on the wall framed, a $20 bill.
Yeah. And what has been noted is that the man had taken out $200.
But there was only 180 in his wallet.
So
it's like, why would the killer, if this was supposed to be a robbery, why would the killer take $20 and not all $180, the other $180?
So in their heads they thought, well, he probably spent it somewhere, right? Yeah. That was basically the original thought.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden they see this $20
bill sitting on the wall, and it's just like, didn't James Darcy say he would want it to be public?
Yep.
Here it is, literally in a frame. And so they say to the guy, are we going to need a warrant to have a look at this bill? And then so the guy immediately tries to flee, and they're like, oh my god, James Darcy was right, and they've got their man.
Yep.
It's a fun story, right? And this is why the show is firing on all cylinders, because it's a fun little side story, but at the same time, what it has to say about the importance of souvenirs to murderers, because this guy's not a serial killer. He's just a guy who avenged himself on somebody who wronged him. But the psychology of the souvenir is what we're supposed to be paying attention to.
Yes.
Because now the episode becomes about the two of them investigating each other.
That was so interesting because, of course, Darcy decides... No, now first Darcy, though, goes to drop off all of the stuff.
File.
The file and
everything.
everything.
Says he can't help her.
And he knows where her new house is, so
Yeah.
he's going to go there to drop it all off. And he runs into Kathy Baker. Now, why she gave her mother a key, I don't know.
Yeah, she really shouldn't have. That was a weird choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
But her mother's there, and so they have a little chat. She finally meets him, you know. He's this guy that she's heard about, but didn't know, and it was nice to meet him. She still doesn't know that he's married with kids because nobody's told her.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they're talking, and then she says, he said,
what I was going to ask you is, right, the statement I've heard a lot about you becomes is so innocuous.
Yes.
And it goes right by. Because it's so innocuous that you don't think for a sec. You don't even think for a second. Is Chloe Sevigny telling her mother all about how she's consulting with a profiler to solve murders? But you wouldn't think that for a second because it's so innocuous how she says it in passing during that scene. And that's what impressed me so much about the later revelation.
Yeah, well, you just think, and okay, so
you just
Chloe's been talking to her mother. That's
why
what
wouldn't you
daughters do.
Exactly.
Right? And so you don't even think about that.
That it might be a significant statement.
But for some reason, he's smarter because she says, well, why don't you just give me the file and I'll
give it to her.
She gets it.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, no, it's okay. I'm going to take it with me. I'll be seeing her soon anyway. So,
yeah.
And he leaves. And then we go to Chloe in prison.
No, first Chloe goes and visits his wife, looking for him. And that's the key part. He goes to her place looking for her, right? And runs into the mother and has this backstory. Meanwhile, she's going to his place looking for him and runs into his wife and gets backstory. Like, the two of them are having exactly parallel experiences while missing one another.
Yes. And actually she goes to visit the mother. She goes to visit his wife before we see
exactly, because that's how they break up the two scenes.
Yeah, they break up
the two scenes of her investigating him.
Yes. And then she, so she's talking to his wife, and his wife mentions that, he's doing this because he's got to save the world, right?
Yep.
And all of, so off Chloe goes to go look for him, but now does the wife say that he has a brother?
Yeah, I think it's the wife who brings it up in passing.
Yes,
and she says that he didn't mention it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
because the next thing we know, she's in jail talking to his brother.
Yes.
And that's a huge surprise.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, that was a big twist.
Yes, and he is in jail because he killed his wife. And he's and he talks about how he's always had this in him. Yeah. And how he'd always known, but he thought if he found a woman, and he did find a woman, and they had this relationship where they fought all the time and then had this make-up sex. And he said, we fought and the rest of it. But he said, one day it just went too much. I just lost it completely. And by the time I came back, she was dead. And he talks about it, and then he starts talking about his brother, and he said that's what he's afraid of. That he said this.
Well, and that's the key
I've
part.
always felt like this. He said so.
The brother had never visited him, right? And the brother essentially did not talk to him after he killed his wife.
Yeah.
Until one day he came by, just out of the blue. One day he comes by, right? And this is the key part that's so interesting is, as he says, he doesn't want to comfort me. He doesn't want to find out. He just wants to find out the why. And they go over the genetic and environmental things, right? How did I become so violent? Because there's the environment you're raised in, specific experiences you have, and your genetics. And they have the same genetics, and they were raised in the same place.
Yep.
So what Darcy was searching for is what was the experience, right? Yeah. There must have been some experience that turned you into this. And as he says, He's just terrified of ending up like me.
Yeah.
And that's the key part. He is so terrified of ending up like me that he, will go to any lengths to find any excuse for how I couldn't possibly end up like that.
Yes.
Oh. Damn.
So.
Mm-hmm.
So then Chloe leaves.
Yeah.
And she goes back to the cop station. And then when they're leaving at the end of the day, because things have ended successfully in the murder of the week, and they're leaving the police station, and Darcy comes up.
To return the file.
And she says no. And he said, I can't do anything with this. Yeah, I just can't.
It's background information.
What? He said, it's all background information. All I've got. I have So she says, what else do you need? And he pulls out a rubber ball that she has put in the file.
Yep. This giant rubber bouncing ball.
It's one of those ones that hard bouncing that destroyed the Tiffany lamp.
Yeah, the Tiffany lamp.
In our Tiffany lamp when you guys were kids.
Well, it did not destroy it. The lamp's fine. It just has a hole in it.
Yeah, it just had a hole in it that I did.
It's not like if it hit the chain and it knocked and the whole thing fell, I would let you get away with saying it destroyed the lamp. But it didn't destroy the lamp. It cost
something to fix it, I'll tell you.
Of course. I'm not surprised. It's a Tiffany lamp.
Yeah, but anyway. So
one of those big rubber ones. Yes.
Yeah, so it was so he says, I need to know what this means.
Yeah, exactly. Because in his head is like, this has no obvious connection to anything in the file, yet it was meaningful enough for you to put in. And as he said, what he's coming to is like, he doesn't say it because they trust the audience. Yeah. It's like, I need to know what the experiences were. Yeah. Like, I need to know what this means. I need to know what happened.
And so she looks at him and says, well, okay.
Let's go.
They get together in the car. They go to the house that she was raised in after they left the parents.
Yeah, where the parents live now currently.
Yes. Yeah. So she goes to the house and they go into the basement and she proceeds to tell the story, and you just go,
I can't believe this is on television.
Yes. This is why it is. Yes. Well, Danish noir, given some of what I've seen of Danish noir, okay. And it's like, yes, but how could this be on television in America?
That was my issue. Yes.
Yes, it is. It was fully and totally graphic.
Completely. It's horrific. And it's complete. It feels authentic. Yeah. It sounds authentic. Like, yep. The whole idea of him, isolating the children, abusing the children, making them, I mean, if not party to their own abuse, right? But like making these keeping of secrets the integral thing. Not
even that. He made her sit on the sofa.
Yeah, and watch the sexual assault.
While he sexually assaulted her brother.
Her older brother, yeah. Because he's making her a part of it and making the control of her the part of it.
She talks about how she goes and she hides herself in the toy chest.
And that's the box, the being stuck in a box she was talking about in the earlier episode.
Yes, that he puts, and there was a panoramic, one of those little panoramic slide things, and she said, I wanted to be anywhere else but.
Oh my God.
She talks about how the toy chest, her stepfather made it and she was a brat and she didn't want to put it in her room and it was there, right?
Well, and the thing that I found funny is they wanted to make it, well, we'll get there, but the thing that I wanted to point out first is how great a job they did of making it so the item, right, the actual... that specific chest in question has a bunch of cutouts in it.
Yeah.
With, various cute symbols like a crescent and a moon and a star. Yeah. But the point is, that's exactly what she was locked in, and that's exactly what the killer used. This coffin with a bunch of cutouts in it.
Yeah.
So it's like, to make it that much more triggering, you understand why it was this. They've made it
why
so...
she killed that
Yes, why she killed
man.
the guy. Exactly. Yeah. Because he completely exactly recreated, without realizing what he was doing, the abuse she had suffered.
Yeah.
Like such a minor thing to put those specific holes on it for her to peek out of. Right? But it's just, it sells what she went through. Such a smart move.
It was horrendous. And then, as she says, one day my brother wasn't there.
Yeah.
And she talks about how she didn't want it. Like, it's when she first starts talking, you don't imagine. I mean, you listen to her explaining how this man slowly but surely, every time her mother was out of the house, he would come downstairs and ask them what they were doing, and he would play games with them and all the rest of it. And it just slowly but surely progressed whenever the mother wasn't home.
Yep. And the key part is, I love the fake Monopoly.
Yeah, the fake Monopoly, right?
The fake Monopoly.
She had to be the banker all the time.
She was always the banker, and the brother always played with the piggy bank.
Yes,
right?
But the piggy bank isn't in the...
Yeah.
Oh, God. I mean, that just...
and she mentions that the piggy bank isn't in there, right?
Yeah, and that she probably threw it around and it's probably somewhere. Because what she said at the beginning when they walk into the basement, because she hasn't been in there ever before, again.
Yeah.
And she looks at it and she says, but he's changed nothing.
Yeah, it's exactly the same as it was.
As it was with
when
all
she
the
left.
games, with everything, with the toy chest where it is, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
And then, then the stepfather and the mother come home.
Yeah. But I do love the observation that she says to herself, and I think this is going to be important later, because it kind of already is important, that she's the type to, when she loses a game, throw the board.
Yeah.
And just destroy. If things aren't going her way, she'll just wreck everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a character point that's going to be interesting later.
Well, yeah, because she was so angry about
exactly.
all of it. Like, this is just the way a child's going to react, the anger, and she's never dealt with any of this. She's obviously not seen a therapist about any of this because nobody would believe her anyway.
I did like games called Trouble and Sorry. It's like they were trying to warn you.
Yes, that's what she said.
Like the board games are trying to warn us. I'm like, oh, that's such a good joke. That's such a good joke.
One of the games was Don't Tell.
Yes, Don't Tell. Trouble, Sorry, Don't Tell.
Yeah.
Like, it's like these things are a code. Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, that made me really happy. So yeah, like, very impressive. But then, as you say, Bruce Davison and Kathy Baker get home. Yes. And you're like, oh no.
And they go, well, so what are you doing there? And Chloe comes up and says, oh, well, I'm down here with the boy smoking,
Smoking weed and making out.
Yeah. and Kathy Baker and Bruce Davison, the stepfather and the mother, just laugh.
Yeah.
Right? And then they come upstairs and...
Oh, no. They come down first because they find it weird that they're in the basement, right? And they point out how weird it is.
She says she was going to take...
Yeah, she was considering taking...
Right, that's downstairs.
And it's vitally important that she talks about potentially taking the chest, because this is our first big questioning of her memory.
Because what she says, yes, is that, I was going to take it because Bruce... Right?
Yeah, because Bruce Davison made it for me. And
then her mother goes, no, your father made it for you.
And she refers to it as the one thing he finished. Oh, I did love, by the way, in passing, right, I did love the thing with the mother. Like, the casualness that we forgot to mention of James Darcy talking about what happened to their birth father. And she's like, why do you assume there's a birth father? And it's like, well, because you go by name X, and she goes by a different name that isn't your maiden name. So, you go by Bruce Davidson name, and she goes by a third name. So I just assumed there had to be.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that it's a very interesting exchange for what we find out later. And this is the part I loved. So he says, "Oh no, I didn't make that for you. Sorry, but that was your quote unquote real dad who made
Actually,
that one."
Kathy Baker
Is the one
says
who
it, her
brings it
mother.
up. Yes.
Yeah.
Corrects her on it.
Yes.
And that gets interesting. And then they offer him a drink. She offers him a drink, and he's like, James Darcy's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I
they
need
offered
to know
them
more.
a drink first, and they were going to go, and
then he finds out about the mistaken memory, and he's like, I need to find out what's going on with this family.
Yeah, that's the curiosity overrides, and okay, well, maybe they'll have the drink. So he and Bruce Davidson go off and have a drink, but Bruce initially reacts as if he barely recognized him. Right?
Oh, and because he's like, oh, right, you're the guy from the office that day.
Yeah.
When he sees him down in the basement.
And then the two of them go off to have their drink in the men's room.
Yeah.
The den.
The den, yes.
And he tells him how he's checked him out.
Yeah.
And
he casually mentions he's had him checked out.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
And then the best part is they go out, right? They go out back to the living room. Right?
No, it's not.
Oh, no, it's not in the living room. It's still in the office.
Not the living room.
It's that Kathy Baker comes in.
The den.
He's walking around the den.
And he sees the silver pig.
Yep. He sees the piggy bank model from the game of Fake Monopoly.
Yep.
Just sitting right there on the shelf. The one that the brother always plays at. The first thing she thinks of when she thinks of the brother was that he always played with this one character in Fake Monopoly. And you're like, what is everything we've been told about serial killers and murderers and their need to constantly be reminded of the stuff they did by keeping the trophies somewhere convenient? And there it is. And on display. Because that runs it into... Because it's like, everyone will be looking at it, but they'll be the only one who knows what it means.
Yep.
And there's the piggy bank right there in front of him. Oh!
In a
glass case. Yeah. Oh, so perfect. Such a good moment.
Which means that everything else probably in that glass case is also a trophy.
Probably. But the problem that Chloe Sevigny is... Well, yes, can't say yet. But what Chloe Sevigny had mentioned earlier is that she's, investigated everything. All of the kids... She's been trying to investigate the kids he dealt with in his work and his coaching and all, because she's like, you don't just kill somebody once.
Yeah.
Right? I think my brother fought back and he killed him and he got rid of the body and he wouldn't stop.
Yeah.
But the weird part is, her not thinking about this is, that actually might be the only person he ever killed. Yeah. Because if nobody ever fought back, most child molesters aren't going to just suddenly become serial killers. They mostly just molest children, and that's where her thinking is slightly flawed, because it's entirely possible that none of the other boys he has molested have fought back, and he's never, had to kill someone.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds bad to say had to kill, but I think it's clear what I meant.
Well, yes. Well, because he wasn't going to
keep his mouth shut anymore.
But it is, so there you go. It is, we've got everything sort of set up, and then they go back and they meet with, and the four of them have a few little conversations, and then they walk out and they're going to go home.
Yeah.
And Chloe is beside herself.
She can't believe she remembered it wrong.
She can't believe she remembered it wrong. And Darcy looks at her and says, he's lying.
Yeah.
He lied about knowing me. He's checked me out.
Yeah, and there's no reason to lie about it.
No, there was no reason to lie. And your mother knew.
Yeah, your mother's always known.
Yep.
Oh, because in that moment he realized, when he sees the file, it didn't occur to him that crucial line from earlier that I've heard her saying, I've heard a lot about you.
Yeah.
She wasn't talking about her daughter.
No.
It's not her daughter who's been talking about him, because of course she hasn't been talking a lot about James Darcy. She and her mother barely talk. Why would this be the thing they talk about? And then he finds out about the looking into and the file and him casually lying to him. And you're like, oh my God, that's who he's been talking to. That's who's been talking about me. She must be way more knowledgeable about this stuff than she admits.
Yep.
Oh, What an ending.
Oh, jeez.
Such a good episode. And now the two of them are in a conspiracy together.
And now, well, and she does say, though, to James, she says, but your wife is wrong. You don't do this to help other people. You do this to save yourself. Yeah,
because if you can figure out why people become this, you think you can stop yourself from doing it.
Yeah.
Which is reasonable.
Becoming like your brother.
Exactly.
But he doesn't have a lot of rage in him.
No.
We haven't seen any indication up to this point that rages, but maybe we don't know. It's going to be interesting to go through it. When I finished watching it, as I said, I wanted to watch the next episode.
Right away. I know.
To see where they're going to go with all of this, because Chloe, I mean, this is very problematic for her because we don't even know, right, about her biological father.
Nope.
Because the mother says, he just took off and left me with 2 children. Well, we don't know. And she then gets a job
as a court stenographer.
And that's how she meets him while he was a lawyer.
Yep.
And they get together and have given the kids a good life up to that point.
Yep. Oh, it's interesting.
It's going to be, because that's what she says when they're in the loft together, the James Darcy and the mother. But it was just like, I'm going, So what of all of this is true?
Yep. Well, no, but I mean, this makes us, and it's again, how great an episode this is. It forces you to question everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it forces to question everything, because she can't trust her memory suddenly, quite understandably, right? She has trouble trusting her memory, but he's like, no, this definitely happened, but it might not have happened exactly like you remember it. Like, I believe...
It might be worse.
Exactly! It might be worse!
A screen memory, honey.
Yep. It might actually be worse than you remember. But he's like...
He didn't say that to her.
No, that's us.
What I'm saying.
That's us. Yeah, no, it's possible. Oh my God, what an ending this episode has.
Yeah. So, it's like, what is it going to do going forward? Is Darcy going to insist that she kind of undergo some kind of hypnosis thing?
To try and dig out what actually happened? That was my first thought.
And she's going to resist that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if this is a screen memory.
Yeah.
And then the mother saying, no, that was made by your
father. Yeah.
And you're just going, okay, well, what did happen to that?
Yep.
First father. And I know. You can't trust anything anybody said.
Nope. You can't trust anything anybody said anymore because...
Well, except for Darcy.
Well, yes, of course you can trust Darcy. No, but it's like that passing line. They don't point out how he figured out the mother was involved. You have to remember.
Yep.
Right? You have to go back and remember the earlier scene and what she said casually, and then you have to think critically about her relationship with her daughter. And then you realize, oh my God, she and the father have these secrets. And she knows what the father's up to. And you're like, okay, now the scene in the church and her going to pray for David does make it look a lot more like she knows that the brother is dead. Yeah. Because she tried to lie about that, but how else can we read it? Becomes the point.
Yes, because after all, Jesus died.
Exactly. She looks at the Jesus and she thinks of David, and it's like, yep, because Jesus was sacrificed so we would all have no sin, and David was sacrificed to give her and her daughter, this stable suburban life. It's horrible.
Well, no, it is. Well, it reminds me of Doubt.
Yes, it does. Yeah, with the mother in doubt saying it's fine. As long as we can get him to high school, as long as we can get him through this, I don't care what happens. Jesus, Doubt.
Well,
that's a rough watch.
Father. Yeah, it was rough in Doubt, and then this is the idea, and it's not like it's the first time it's ever happened either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what's so unsettling about all of this.
Yeah, it's not like this is out of the realm of understanding or possibility.
No, not in the least. Not in the least, but I don't really want to go into my...
Yeah, I know. There's a whole lot of evidence to back this up, and we're not going to dig into various histories of counseling that you've done for people, because we're not going to violate their privacy even anonymously for this.
Well, we're not even going to... Well, and I've talked about sort of the situation, and I've never really pushed it, the sort of situation that my mother was in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my God, her mother just threw her.
Oh, I know. But that's not something. But suffice to say, this is not a crazy thing. But this is not a crazy thing to suggest, and it is not an unusual thing. It is not as unusual as we would like it to be when we're talking about stuff being represented by this show. It's a tough episode.
It was tough when I finished watching it. I called you afterwards.
Yeah, to be like, I think there's a whole episode worth of this. And I'm like, you're right. Because if we tried to do this with the next one, we'd be here like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Or at least 90 minutes. We're gonna have a nice short episode this week. It's gonna be a reasonable length, unlike usual. So I'm very happy about that. But yeah, watching this episode, it was breathtaking. Right?
Yes, it was.
How good this is.
Well, and how everything connects.
Yeah.
And how they balanced her finding out about his brother and him finding out about, like, having these conversations with the mother.
Yep.
And all of these other things.
And the seamless explanation of how trophies work.
Yep.
Of how important trophies are to murderers. Right?
Which is why it was so, so, so important when he saw the pig.
Yeah, when he saw the pig. But we can understand it immediately because we got the wonderful explanation all episode long. Right? Yep. They did their groundwork, and that's what impressed me so much about this episode. It's a perfect example of them laying the groundwork necessary
for the next. I don't know where this is going to go.
Where is it going to go next time?
I mean, I'm sure we've got 5 more episodes left.
Yep.
And Chloe is not going to, because this is going to just send her around the bend.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. And as I said, and if it's a screen memory, God help me.
I know, right? Where the hell is this going? Yeah.
Because a screen memory can have a lot of truth in it.
Of course.
It's still usually covering up worse. And that's what happens. She had to. I mean, what else could she do? She had to live in that household.
Yep.
And then one day she was out with her mother, and when they came home, David wasn't there.
Yep. Oh.
He ran away.
Quote unquote.
Yep.
Oh my God. It's an amazing episode. Because all of the pieces, it's so great to see all of the stuff they've been setting up, all of the pieces. Now they're all laid out in one place, and you understand the puzzle you've been looking at that they've been building right in front of you this whole time.
Yes, except we're missing all sorts of pieces.
Oh, of course. There's still the stuff we have to find out.
And they're not in the right place. Even the ones you've got aren't quite in the right place.
Yeah, but that now we understand the puzzle we're looking at, finally. Yeah. We know who the players are. We know the rough order of events. It's not mysterious anymore. Now it's a question of putting everything in the right order and digging into the facts. Because it's now we're starting, and it's going to be. I have a prediction it's going to go well.
Well, yes. Well, for us, the viewer.
For the characters, maybe not so much. No, that might not be so great for the characters, actually.
We don't know, but we'll see.
Oh, I can't wait. I really can't wait. It's one of those, how rare is it that you watch this episode and you're like, I got to get to the next episode.
Yep.
But that's how I feel. It's so rare for a show to do this to me, but it really is. I feel like I've got to get to the next episode right away.
Yeah, because it was, yeah, okay, so this is Monday. So do we want to watch the next 2 episodes and do another one on Wednesday?
We're going to talk about that off mic, but maybe, honestly. I mean, it doesn't matter to all y'all because
you just get it.
Yeah, you're getting it 6 months from now. Okay, not 6 months from now, 4 months from now, but still, it's a while off. We don't even know yet that we don't even know yet that Trump was jailed.
Yes, well, yeah, we'll have to watch that one too.
I know. In case you're wondering, when are we recording this? It's a month before. It's 3 weeks before the sentencing. So yeah, it's post he's been found guilty and 3 weeks before the sentencing. If you're wondering when we're talking about this. So yeah, we've a lot more about all of the craziness that has happened than we do. So, you got that over us. So we're going to see you back here next week, and I think it's going to be pretty exciting.
I think so.
I think it's going to be really exciting where this show goes next week. So we're going to watch the next 2 episodes, and unless there's another episode where we just have to devote the whole time to it, which, is not impossible with the kind of stuff this show is doing. But unless that happens, expect us to do 2 episodes a week, so 6, 7, 8, 9, and then a final episode, which is just episode 10, and talking about the show as a whole. Yeah. Us being like, this is what the show was, this is what the show meant, this is whether the show worked or not. Spoiler alert, I'm going to say the show worked.
Oh, I think the show worked, and I think that they probably didn't intend it to be more than 10 episodes.
I mean, given the way they are rushing towards this wall, the wall that is her life getting blown up. How is this? Because, you watch this and you're like, how could there be a second season of this?
Yes, and he's going to he's going to have to, just as she was starting to be on her own and all of those things.
Yep. And it's like, oh my God, is he going to kill Bruce Davison? It's not impossible.
Well, no, it all depends on what we find out.
Exactly, right? That's my point.
There's also, he's got to go back and talk to his brother.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. That has to. And is that going to be the catalyst for him murdering Bruce Davison?
Well, I'm not sure.
Of him understanding this is in him, and if it's in him, where did it come from?
Yes, we know nothing about
his upbringing.
His and the brother's backstory.
Nope. But yeah, all we know is he has this terror of ending up like his brother. Okay, well, where did the brother come from? Like, where did this, how did this happen? Where did this rage come from? And how did he, and he just thought it was a regular part of himself, so he didn't try to get a treatment, and his wife ended up dying.
Now, is he the older brother or the younger brother?
I can't tell.
Okay. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
There's no way to tell based on how these 2 men look.
No, you can't. And
no, you can't.
Because it's always, the potential is always there that the brother was also sexually abused.
Oh yeah.
When he was younger, and Darcy too. Mm-hmm. You never know. I mean, it's not like, because those things can be so hidden and and so repressed.
Yep.
And it's quite possible that this is what we're looking at is a potentially a repression, not that Davidson would have done it, but within their own family structure.
Yeah.
And that's how they've ended up in these 2 different places.
Weird parallel places.
Yes, but the one is ends up in a psychiatric institution, and the other one ends up in jail.
Yeah.
And neither one of them can figure out how that happened.
How it happened. Oh, one thing we forgot to mention, and it's the thing that most makes James Darcy question Chloe Sevigny, is that she announces that that to cope with seeing her brother getting molested, how she copes with it now is that in order to get her to keep her mouth shut, Bruce Davidson cut her with a razor on her hip. Yeah. And he's like, I don't know a lot of pedophiles who are going to cut you with a razor on your hip, because that makes it really easy to get caught. And she's like, here's the scars. Shows off her fresh scars that she just cut into herself the other day. And he's like, those are new.
And she says, yes, but I keep cutting over the same scars so that
they're my property. I know! It's like, it's so weird to us talk about what cutting means right? Last episode to do this whole treatise on what cutting means, and then have the character just say what cutting means in basically the exact same words we used.
Yeah.
That was a little weird, right?
It was a little weird, but I'm so glad that we were supported in our discussion.
Like 100%. We were exactly supported by the text. The text concurs with our analysis 100%, in fact.
Thank God.
Yeah, that was nice. It's nice not to have to argue with the text. Criminal minds.
Oh, God, yes.
Not to have to argue with your guys' interpretations for once. And just be like, no, you guys are... The critics are right. Yes, we are. Thank you for acknowledging it, Show. But no, just such a great moment because it talks about what cutting means and how it makes him wonder how much of this she's remembering. Did Bruce Davison ever cut her, or was this just the coping mechanism she discovered?
Yes, and
so she has processed it backwards she has reverse engineered the story in her own head of her getting cut by Bruce Davison because, of course, the cutting is a direct consequence of having this secret that she can't let out.
Well, and God only knows. God only knows whether she was abused as well,
exactly.
Sexually abused on top of it. But being made to sit on the couch.
It is sexual abuse. Whether he's touching her or not, it's still sexual abuse.
Yep.
And that's the key. And so the cutting is
they're watching.
Who the hell knows? But the point is, I know. I mean, how dark is this show going to get?
No.
Right? And so the question becomes, right, where is this going next?
Yep.
Because there's any number of places this could be going next, and none of them are safe. You know? Yep. None of them are safe after that.
Not.
After seeing that, there's like this show could go anywhere, and no matter where it goes, it's going to be rough.
Yeah.
And it's so rare you get to say that at a show, that a show is this, I'll say it's daring.
No let up.
No, there's no relief. I was not exaggerating last week when I said it's if Cracker every episode was Brothers Keeper or Men Should Weep, right?
Yeah.
Which is part one. I mean, part two is Brothers Keeper. Part one is, it's really, Brothers Keeper and Men Should Weep is really one, in reverse order. Men Should Weep and Brothers Keeper is really one story in two parts, told over, 6 hours of television? But yeah, it's like, it's as bleak as the show Cracker got, and Cracker was always a bleak show, and this is operating at that speed all the time.
Yeah, every single
every week.
It's nothing. Oh, I mean, that was I can still want to cry about the woman who killed her son.
I know. It's so horrific.
That was so horrific.
Oh, so beautifully done and so horrific.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I loved it. All right, so speaking of stuff we love, we're going to be back next week with more of Those Who Kill. I think we basically, I don't think we're probably not going to episode by episode the Danish show, but I think we're going to watch the Danish show and report back to you after we're done watching this.
Yes.
Just engage with those subtitles, And a Mickelson brother playing the James Darcy role, we assume.
We assume, yes.
All right, so it should be fun. But until then, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you'd like to react to the utter, bleakness that is Those Who Kill. Drop us a line at profilingcriminalminds@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. If you're listening on an app or podcatcher, please rate, review, and subscribe, because that's how people find out about the show, and you'll never miss an episode. We'll see you back here next week for more Those Who Kill, but until then, I'll say that's right. Au revoir.
And have a good week.